Do you struggle with doubting yourself? Do you struggle to trust yourself or have trust in the decisions you make? Are you constantly plagued by oh, did I make the right decision? Or have you heard of people saying, oh, my picker's off when they're talking about choosing a partner or dating? These are the themes we're talking about today, and we're going to talk about a little bit why we do it, but then we're going to focus mostly on what are some tools we can do, some tips we can try that are going to help us build trust with ourselves so that we can make decisions and be more at ease with ourselves and not be struggling with that doubt, oh, I don't know if I made the right decision. If these are things that you struggle with, I want you to stay tuned. I am Erica. I am your host of Powered by Joy podcast, and here we're talking about ways to have more joy, happiness, adventures, making shifts, getting empowered to make shifts in your life. If you are someone who's feeling stuck, frustrated, bored, doubtful, fearful, and you just don't know how to make shifts in your life, we're talking about ways, little practical steps we can do in our lives and tools we can use to make more space and have a bigger capacity for more joy and happiness in our lives. So if that's something you're curious about, you're in the right place, my friends. Okay, so the most important relationship we have where there needs to be trust is the relationship with ourselves. The relationship you have with you and the trust you have in yourself is more important than all the others, because if you don't have that, then you'll have struggles in all the other ones, right? So number one tip that I'm going to suggest that you try is simply getting to know yourself and practicing just being yourself or being authentically you when you're comfortable. But people are like, well, what do you mean by get to know myself? What does that even mean? Okay, one of the things that you want to do is hone in on your core values, the things that you find most important. So that could be maybe one of your core values and highest priorities in life is your family, or your spouse, or it might be your health, or it might be your career. There's different things in our lives. Like love and connection might be a really high priority for you or a core value for you. And so oftentimes we don't even know what that is for ourselves because we've never even sat and thought what are the most important values, things that I do value that become my values? What are those? I don't even know. So I actually have a really helpful exercise that you can click on the link in my show notes to access. It's actually kind of fun to do. So if you're somebody who can't sit down and really come up with a few ideas of what's really important to you, what you value most in life, maybe it's freedom, adventure, it might be learning, it might be connection. There's so many things that you can value, and a lot of it has to do with how you're raised and experiences you've had, but we think we're all born with certain things that we really crave and value in our lives. And so I do have a fun exercise if you need a little extra help with that, and it just gives you clarity around your values. So you can check that out in the show notes if you need help with that. But we're going back to this getting to know ourselves. If we experience trauma in our lives, which most of us have some sort of trauma in our lives and past relationships and growing up and just living life on this planet, one of the things that can happen in trauma is that we disconnect from our values and things that are important to us, or our feelings and knowing how we feel about things. So then oftentimes we become so disconnected from it, and it can be from such an early time in our childhood that we don't even realize we are in tune with what we know and our dislikes and our likes. I don't like this food, or I'm a morning person. I don't like to get out of bed in the morning, or I am a morning person. There's lots of things that make up who we are. And so there's so many of us that are so busy just kind of doing life, and we've had some past trauma in relationships, and we've just kind of numbed out or just hit the mute button on our what I like to call your knower. So how tuned in are you to your knower, your likes, your dislikes, your values, what's important to you in your life? And taking time to get to know those things about yourself, if you have become disconnected from them, is a really key step in building trust with yourself. So I just wanted to encourage that. So a really good practice, if you're just starting out, is, let's just say you're in a situation where you're having to make a decision and you're struggling with choosing because you don't trust yourself to make the right choice. What you can do is ask, is this something that I really want? When you're considering maybe food, because maybe you're trying to feel better and feel healthier, and you've always grown up eating a certain food and it's never occurred to you that you don't have to have that food in your diet. Maybe you hate broccoli and you're like, I don't know, whatever it is. But asking, is this something that I really want? Ask it over and over again. Make it a game, something you do throughout your day, especially if you're trying to get to know yourself and discover your likes and dislikes and getting keyed in. So the more you ask that and just kind of pause and, do I really want this, or do I really want that? And then the next step is like checking in with our body and our knower. Do you hear a little voice in the back of your mind that says, no way, I'm sick of eating broccoli. I don't have to eat that anymore. Parents aren't around to tell me anymore. And it makes me gassy. So I'm not going to eat broccoli anymore. I'm going to find other vegetables, whatever it is. But the practice of asking that and then tuning in, oftentimes our knower intuition, our likes and dislikes, our body will communicate that stuff to us. And so many of us are also disconnected from how wise our bodies are and how much our body is trying to guide us. And there's actually proof in the science world that we actually have a ton of connections with our gut. So when we talk about listening to our gut or that gut wisdom, like there's actually proof that there's knowledge and wisdom in our guts too, not just in our mind and our hearts, but in our gut. And so learning to tune in. So you're like, oh, do I really want that? And do you feel tense? Do you like maybe start having shallower breath? Do you feel ease in your body and relax? That's usually like, yeah, maybe I do want this. But if you feel resistance, your shoulders go up, your body tenses, your breathing shortens, your face is tense, you're clenching your jaw. These are all cues that maybe that's not what you really want. So using your body to help you get to know yourself is huge. So asking that lovely question, is this what I really want? Tuning into your body and your gut. Yes, no, okay. And just going with that. So these are ways to practice getting to know yourself. Okay. So now we're going to go into step 2. We are going to go to being kind and compassionate with ourselves. I know this is a novel idea, right? Kindness and compassion with ourselves. So let's say you've made a decision, or you've made a choice, or you've taken action on something, and maybe it doesn't go quite how you wanted it to, or you didn't like the outcome, or somebody got really upset with you, or the thing didn't go quite how you planned, and you had negative repercussions. Okay, we now have a choice of beating ourselves up, being critical, judging ourselves, and, kind of ripping ourselves a new one, as we would say. Or you have the choice to be kind and compassionate and just go, okay, it is what it is. And then how would you talk to a friend who is really struggling and in stress that maybe made that same choice? How would you talk to them and guide them through that? Would you be like, you're so stupid. Why do you do that all the time? Well, hopefully you wouldn't say that to a friend or maybe your child or something. You would find another way to have this conversation and maybe be a little bit more compassionate. Be like, well, you made the best choice you could. So now what? And so how can we be kind and compassionate with ourselves? And that means showing compassion. Like, so let's say something doesn't play out the way you want and you feel sad or mad or disappointed. That is also okay. We have to learn to have compassion and space and allow ourselves to feel those feelings, not stuff them down, feel them, go, okay, yep, that didn't feel good. They show that usually about 60 to 90 seconds of letting yourself feel a feeling, just kind of processing it and being in that emotion, it usually tends to have a little bit of a release and not hold so much energy and passion behind it. If we're coming from a place of curiosity and just observing it, we can really build our anger and negative emotions really well. I'm used to be super good at that, and I can still do it. But if we're really trying to work towards trust and growing and beginning to love ourselves differently, then we're coming into feeling our emotions with compassion and giving ourselves space to feel our feelings and being kind, and then moving on to how we can be compassionate with ourselves in regards to the choice we made instead of being critical. So that's another one. Now, number 3 is time alone. And this can be something that some people absolutely hate to hear because like, yeah, or I don't have time, or yeah, I do it, but then they're on their phone scrolling. They're not actually with themselves. So time alone is meditating, going for a walk. Maybe it's just sitting quietly before you get out of bed. You don't touch your phone. You just sit on the edge of your bed and just do some breathing for 2 minutes and just kind of move your body, but you're not engaging with anybody, but you're just taking a few minutes to be with yourself. And the more you can be with yourself and spend time alone, think of it like when you're dating somebody, you want all this one-on-one time with them. You don't want to always hang out with other people. You crave having this one-on-one time to get to know them, right? You're curious about them. And so, yeah, you make it a priority to have this one-on-one time, and you magically have time in your schedule for one-on-one dates, right? Because you're super into this person. Well, you need to think the same way about yourself. If you have not been someone who has practiced taking time to be with yourself and alone and not being numbed out and distracted by things, then that is a practice you need to think of like dating. Like, yeah, you've probably heard that before, like pretend like you're dating yourself or something. But the point is, can you make time for a one-on-one date with yourself to get to know yourself? And the more time you've done it, the easier it gets. And, that's not something you have to do for lifelong of sitting contemplating yourself. It's just something when you're just starting this practice of getting to know yourself, building trust with yourself. These are tools that oftentimes people that struggle with trusting themselves don't do. So these are just suggestions to try implementing to create that space to get to know yourself so that you can build that trust that you so want, right? That trust in yourself. So number 4 is to set goals and to also try something new. So here's an example. Like you could say, okay, I'm going to pick up the new hobby of golf. I'm going to learn this new skill set of golf. Well, you're not going to start off by being like, okay, I'm going to win a championship. I'm going to enter a tournament and I'm going to win. Okay. You're setting yourself up for failure and maybe quitting and not building trust in yourself, where let's say you've bought the golf clubs and you've decided that your first goal is just that you make it to the driving range and hit a bucket of balls like twice a week, or just setting some minimum small, achievable baby step goals when you're learning a new skill. So that could be riding a motorcycle. You want to learn to ride a motorcycle. Okay, well, you're not going to go out there and start on a racetrack, right? That might be your end goal, but like, what are the baby step goals in between? Because each time you set a goal and you learn something a little bit new and you master that, it builds confidence in yourself. And when you learn a new skill or you master something new, it builds confidence and trust in yourself that you can stick to something, you can do it, you can learn something new. It shows you that you're actually much more capable. And I will definitely say that learning to ride my motorcycle and then getting confident with it by practicing and doing smaller achievable goals definitely built confidence in all other areas of my life. It transferred over, and that's even into my work. So anytime we put ourselves out and learn a new skill, set some goals, and make them small and achievable baby steps, that is a really great tool to do to build trust with yourself. Okay, so we're just stacking up the goals, or stacking up the wins, right? So the last one is to stick with your decisions. This takes a little bit of intention when you're first starting out, is to set the intention of like, okay, when I make the decision, I'm not going to question it and change my mind, like kind of making a silent rule with yourself. It might be that you put a rubber band on or a bracelet or something on your wrist when you first start out. I've used that for other tools too, around like talking negatively to myself, like as a reminder, setting an intention in the morning to not talk negative to myself. Well, this could be setting that intention to not waver on your decisions just for the day, or maybe till lunchtime. Let's just break it down to an achievable goal. So we're putting on some sort of reminder. We're setting an intention when we get up in the morning. Okay, I'm going to make decisions today, and when I make them, I'm not going to change my mind. I'm just going to trust that I'm going to be able to deal with the outcome of the decision. So really, the more we make a decision, it's like going to the gym and lifting weights, right? We're fatiguing, we're carrying more weight on our shoulders. And I have found that the more I made decisions, and sometimes it was for groups, not just for myself, after practicing more, I realized that I made the decision for the group and the outcome might not turn out exactly how I want, or there might be some great stuff about it and maybe something else went bad. So maybe I chose an Airbnb for a whole group of people and it was really great, but there was like only one bathroom or something, right? So then everybody was like, oh, that one bathroom. But overall, I made the decision and I was willing to deal with the repercussions of the choice I made so that somebody could make a decision, we could make some movement forward. So I learned to practice bearing the responsibility or the weight of making a decision or a choice and being like, you know what, it's okay, I'll deal with the outcome. So one of the things that I have done is someone having a past history of worrying was I learned that oftentimes if I felt really stuck on making a decision and I was worried about making the wrong one, and trusting myself, I would run out what I would call, and this is a quick exercise. This is not something you ruminate on for days or hours. This is a quick, okay, what would be the worst case scenario or outcome of this choice in this situation? So an example would be, I made the decision to book this Airbnb and it only has one bathroom and there's a whole bunch of us. Okay, worst case outcome, there's going to be 3 people that need to use the bathroom at the same time, and it could get a little, messy. So can I deal with that outcome or not? Maybe that's not an outcome I'm willing to face or deal with. Okay, I'm going to go find an Airbnb with 2 bathrooms. So there's at least a backup option. Okay, that's just a really simple example. But I did find that that can be a quick tool. What is worst case? Not what is the 1,000 worst case scenario outcomes and worry and stress. This is a quick, okay, what would be the worst outcome of this? Can I deal with it or not? And if not, what can I do to change that or alter my decision so that it's an outcome that if it goes awry, I'm feeling capable of facing that outcome. So the more we do that and we face outcomes, whether they're good or bad, it builds up the muscle, the ability to carry that weight of making decisions and sticking with them. And then you start to have that also the practice of dealing with the outcomes. And we actually magically find that most of the time that all of the bad worst case scenarios rarely come true. It's usually much better outcome than what we've projected in our minds because we're all really good at coming up with lots of bad outcomes and worry. And we all suck for the most part at spending just as much time daydreaming or hoping or visualizing awesome outcomes. And there's power in that too, but we're sticking with how we build trust, right? And so that is practicing bearing that weight of making decisions and trusting we have the ability to deal with the outcome. So when that bathroom scenario comes up, everybody laughs about it. You're like, oh, okay. I dealt with that outcome and I got a little teasing for making the choice of that specific Airbnb, but everybody was okay. We still had a good time. It's all okay. So it was practice. It was learning. Okay, next time we got to have 2 bathrooms. So when we're getting that practice, making those decisions, whether they come out good or bad, there's no failing because we're still learning. So that's still a good thing. So it just goes into your wisdom bank of okay, next time I make a similar decision, now I have a reference point to go back and look at and go, oh, that I need to adjust a little bit. I'm not going to make the same kind of decision because it didn't work out so good last time. Now you're making a better decision. So that's why I like to wear this necklace. And I also refer to golf where, our life is we keep learning the same lessons. We keep coming up against the same kinds of things. Building trust is a process, just like building trust with someone in a relationship. It takes time and a process and proving circumstances happening where life gets life happens, which proves trust when people show up and make the right decisions, right? So it just takes time. So I like to wear this necklace to remind myself that I'm in another situation where I've got to make a decision and I make it just 1% better than the last time I came up in this situation where I had to make a choice, then it's still better than last time. And it opens up my trajectory, expands my wisdom and my knowledge, which is what we're all here doing. And so same thing as a golf swing. Your golf swing, you're trying to adjust it. They talk about making a 1% adjustment on the trajectory of the swing when, right up close, it doesn't make a difference. But when it's out 150 yards, that 1% massively changes your trajectory. And it's the same thing with the pilot who makes a 1% adjustment on their flight pattern. If they don't correct that 1%, they could be in a completely different city by the end of the trip, right? So this isn't about huge movement, huge building trust moments. Those come too, but this is really about the small 1% every day. How do you build trust with yourself? It's by making these decisions over and over and over and just making them a little bit better each time, getting better at weighing out your options quickly and trusting your decisions. All of these lead to building trust in yourself. And so don't be hard on yourself. We're not failing, we are learning. So remember, we're not talking about bad choices. We're talking about learning from the decisions we do make and trusting that we can deal with the outcome on the other end, or at least have the support and resources to figure out how the fuck to get through what we just did or made a choice to have happen in our life. So trusting that we have those resources, especially in this day and age. We have a bajillion free resources through podcasts and YouTube and all sorts of things out there. And so trusting that you can go out and find those resources to make a good decision when you are maybe feeling stuck. That's, again, building trust. Okay, I do have it within me to figure this out. So I hope that these 5 steps are super helpful for you in building trust in yourself. So remember that as long as you are making the best decision you can with the knowledge you have at that moment, that is what matters. I think it's Maya Angelou talks about, like, as long as you made that decision, then you did the best you could, right? You made the best decision you could. And if you're coming from that place, then we don't want to have regrets. We're learning and gaining wisdom. And so I like to make a little joke of, I did my best. I did my best in that moment. And if you can come from that heart space, then good on you, because you're building trust in yourself. And that's what we all need, so that we echo out into better relationships and trust in our other relationships when we trust ourselves first. So I would love it if you would share in the comments, or even email me, whatever it is, or even on Instagram, sharing with me a specific example of something you did that built trust in yourself. I'd love to hear your story about how you built trust with yourself as a practice, so that other people, including myself, can learn from that, because it's always something we're learning and growing. And I'm always speaking from trying to put these actions into play, and I'm still growing and learning too. But I would love to be a resource for you if you are somebody who struggles with that and that sounds familiar. Also, if this has been helpful and you know somebody who really struggles with trusting themselves and making decisions and struggling with doubt and worry, please share this with them. I would love to be a help and a resource for somebody else that has had those struggles too. And of course, they can reach out to me for one-on-one help. And I have about 1 more week until we're closing the free discovery call offers. It's a free 30-minute call. So if you are looking for some guidance, help, coaching, and mentoring in these areas, trying to have more joy in your life, you can check those resources out in the show notes. And I thank you for joining me for another week, and much love. Mwah!